Welcome to the Infrastructure Network, the media company that provides a wide range of market research and intelligence services that help businesses and government agencies stay informed and make informed decisions about their infrastructure. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Network. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I'm your host. Today's guest is Jeff Boschert, who is the National Clay Pipe Institute president. Thanks for joining me, Jeff.
Hey, you bet. Glad to be here, Chad. Thank you.
It's exciting stuff because clay pipe has been around forever, and it's one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about. So I'm truly excited to learn the history of clay pipe today and more about you and how you got into the business. So how did you get into the business?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I graduated college in '96,
Okay.
and I've got a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I went to University of Missouri at Rolla. They call it Missouri S&T today. It's in Rolla, Missouri. It's probably an hour and a half southwest from St. Louis, which is where I live. I currently live in St. Louis. I grew up here. But out of college, I went to work for Missouri DOT, and I was in big bridges. I did construction inspection, heavy highway, big river bridge crossings. That was kind of my thing for 8 years. And I had a big project finish up, and I put my resume, and again, this was back in about 2004. I put my resume on the Monster board one night, and it was maybe 9 o'clock. And I had this headhunter guy call me the next morning at 7 o'clock, and he says, "Hey, Jeff, I pulled your resume from Monster this morning." And he said, I need to call you, and I want to send your resume to a client of mine. They're looking for somebody that has your skills. And I said, "Well, who is it?" And he said, "Well, it's the clay pipe industry." And the first thing I said to this headhunter was, "Hey, I didn't think they made clay pipe anymore." And so that's why it's a funny story. So here we are, I guess, fast forward. This is my 19th year with the clay pipe industry. I'm the president. So
Wow.
19 years ago, I guess I didn't, I knew a clay pipe, but, I never was in the underground infrastructure world.
Right.
But, so when I got that call, I didn't think it was made anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fairly unique story, Chad.
That is a very interesting story. And then obviously you became the president. You had to start learning about clay pipe somewhere. How did that work out for you?
Well, when I was interviewing, I was intrigued. So I said, "Sure, send it to them." And so I guess 3 months later I was hired, but I guess initially I went online and started downloading information. One of the first things I downloaded was it's our clay pipe engineering manual. It's a book that we still publish today. We're working on our 2023 edition, but the first iteration of that book published in 1946. So,
Wow.
you can download the book on our website. That was the first piece that I got, and just reading different articles online about clay pipe and, why it's still here, if you will.
So historically, clay pipe was used when? I know 1946. You kind of mentioned it was, but I think it was before that, right? They were using clay pipe.
For sure, yeah. I think the oldest clay pipe known to man, and the pieces are still in existence, but they were in Babylonia, and I think the date is 4,000 BC. So what is that? That's over 6,000 years old. It's it's one of the oldest building materials known to man, and we're still using it today, which is fairly exciting.
That is exciting. And clay pipe has, evolved over the years. It's changed, from what my experience has been. It was always installed in short segments because we didn't have the heavy equipment, back in the day, back in the mid 1900s, to where we didn't have the equipment. We were laying short segments of clay pipe in the ground. Now, how long of a pipe can you guys create pipe wise?
Well, typically we're still not as long as some of the other products, but typically our lengths are between 5 feet and 8 feet, depending on diameter. We make it. We're still in the smaller range. We don't go any bigger than 42, but our size range is 4-inch ID to 42-inch ID. That's sort of our market, if you will.
Got it. How how are how's the industry been to you lately? I would imagine with infrastructure, the boom and things like that. How have business been for you guys?
It's booming. Yeah, we several of our factories, we can't make it fast enough. It's been fairly exciting. I guess over the last 4 years, we've had we've had two new kilns. We have to fire the pipe in a kiln,
Yeah,
and so we've had two new kilns go up at two of our factories just to keep up with the demand.
yeah, that's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Why do you think there's a new demand for, maybe I'm wrong in saying new demand, but a demand for clay pipe? Because, my experience is there's a lot of competition in this space. And, why do you think clay pipe is becoming, coming back again, so to speak?
Well, we've had several markets. This has been going on for probably 10 years, Chad, but we've had several markets that used clay pipe for years, like everybody used to, and then went away from it to another product, and then taking a relook at clay pipe because they're doing this video inspection and they're seeing, well, hey, we've got these lines over here that are 125 years old, and here's our video. Here's how the pipe looks, and then we've got on this side of town is a newer part of town, and we have pipe, this other type of pipe product, and they're seeing issues with it, and it's only 25 or 30 years old. So
Yeah.
that longevity is one of the driving forces to areas looking at clay pipe again and then realizing, well, hey, wait a minute, this old product is 125 years old, and here's its condition, and it was made like this.
Yeah.
And we've evolved with the material itself and the joint. And then the product we make today is a different animal than what that old pipe was. And the old pipe lasted 125 years or 150 years or however old it is.
Yeah.
This new product, I think it has an indefinite life.
That's interesting. You talk about life cycles because of infrastructure, and that's one of my big things I talk about is longevity of infrastructure. I think we've been at a disadvantage over the past 20 years or so by new materials coming into this space, maybe the last 20, 30 years in infrastructure, undergrounds especially, to where we were told one thing and we're not getting the results of that material like we expected, right? So it's 50 years, 100-year life cycle, it's going to last forever. And then you start putting these things in a real environment in the ground, and then you start to realize 10, 20 years later, wait a minute, this thing is not the way it's supposed to be.
Sure.
Why do you think that is? Do you think we just don't have a better quality assurance, program to vet these materials before they actually get put into the ground, or, any insight on what you think about that?
Well, I think it's all about material properties. Like our pipe, clay pipe. Well, if you can see this, I got a piece right here.
Yeah.
This is a chunk. It's actually a cut spigot end, and I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
This is the mortar that they used to use to join it.
Okay.
So the bell would have made it up just like so. So this is just a cut piece of, I think it's 6 or 8 inch pipe, but I kind of forgot where I got it. I think it came out of Texas, but this piece of pipe in my hand, it was a well-made clay pipe. It's almost 150 years old. And you hold this piece of pipe, this little coupon, if you will, you hold this in your hand, and all of its material properties are the same today as when it was new 150 years ago. And there's not a whole lot of building materials that are made and sold today that can say that.
Yeah. That's a big concern. It should be for everyone, because if we're putting in spending all this billions of dollars on infrastructure right now, as we currently are, and the expectancy should be it's going to last 100 years, because the last thing as taxpayers we want to do is spend more money. That's in 10 years, 20 years from now, when it starts failing again, now we got to replace it again, and it's just a compounding problem for us in infrastructure, and it costs us a lot more money to maintain and replace these things. So how do you think we could get people to understand more about what clay can do for infrastructure?
Well, it's there's a few of us is the problem. We're so busy, and we've got, I mean, believe it or not, depending where you live, I mean, 5 of the 6 largest cities, they specify only clay pipe, and some of those competitor pipes, they don't even allow them. And
Wow.
we're busy with all those big markets. Um, but then there's other areas that are like me. I didn't even know it existed, and
Yeah.
so it's just spreading the word.
Yeah, it is. It's just spreading the word.
Yeah,
What are other things you're passionate about, Jeff?
I'm
Besides
passionate
maybe
about
clay pipe.
besides clay pipe.
Yeah, besides clay pipe. Just curious.
Yeah, I am passionate about cars and
Okay.
sports. I'm a big car guy. I got a couple old Corvettes that I tinker with. I tinkered
Nice.
with them more before I had 3 kids. They kind of got in the way a little, but yeah,
I'm with you on that one.
yeah.
I got
Those
5,
are-
so
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
busy around here. Can't
yeah,
be messing around with too much of that. And the only reason why I asked that is I'm just curious because it's you're in this clay pipe infrastructure world, and infrastructure the way it is right now, it's not great. All right, it's not fancy. It's not a place to be. We don't have enough labor. We have all these shortages of supplies, materials, things like that.
mhm,
And it's always good to know like the people behind these processes, selling it or talking about it, or putting it out there as far as to help improve our communities. Really, why do you think clay pipe hasn't been adopted more to these other cities within these communities?
Well, I think we've got a black eye, if you want to call it a black eye, with clay pipe because, really nationwide, prior to, I'll say the Clean Water Act happened in 1972, and but prior to that, we we supplied a pipe that didn't have a factory applied joint, and the factory applied joint that we make today is leak free, root free, yet yet flexible. The clay
Mhm.
pipe joint can flex, and we didn't have that prior to the 1970s.
Right.
So those old pipes had either mortar or tar. Sometimes they put oakum in there before the mortar or tar, and none of those materials stood the test of time. They leaked from day one, and when you have a leaky joint, it causes a couple things. Number one, it could cause roots to grow, and the roots are looking for water, they're looking for nutrients, and inside of a sanitary sewer is a perfect environment.
Yeah.
And number two, if the joints are leaking and taking on water, uh, the bedding soils that were used to bed and support that pipe could be taken into the sewer, and then you end up with this buried pipe in the ground that may have voids around the outside, and
Yeah.
it causes a structural problem. So, not having a joint prior to really the early 1970s is a detriment to the pipe itself. And
Right.
so, we have a black eye because number one, we're so old, and we're a lot of times we're still in the ground because the pipe hasn't degraded, but you know, they have roots in every joint. So the general mentality was, hey, I don't want any clay pipe, it's got roots. And
Right.
we solved that problem in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where like the herbicide root control concept started.
Sure.
Pretty much every bell joint on the clay pipe had roots growing in it, and it was just an easy access point. Like you said, we didn't have the proper materials to put in those joints to seal
Right.
it up the way it should have been back then. And now things have obviously changed that you're describing there. So, how do you think we can, get a better understanding? So now we got 8-foot sections, right? So we don't have as many joints as we used to, and back in the day where it was like 3 or 4 feet, it was a joint typically.
Or 2 to 3. 2 to 3
Yeah,
was common.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it can be a heavier product, right? It is compared to PVC, but you're talking about, again, life cycle, a heavier product, more stable. It's thicker. It's gonna withstand the pressures of underground and not break. Because I tell people this all the time when I was out in the doing the sales for the root treatment and stuff. I was One of the things was clay pipe is great as long as you don't put it near trees. Like it literally was back then. I
Hmm.
mean, because it was all those joints, and obviously they planted under a tree or right next to the tree. Well, what do you think is going to happen,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
that was one of those things where I used to educate them, like, okay, so you don't have to line every inch of clay pipe, you don't have to repair it or replace it. You have to just figure out a better way to engineer and design the placement of the pipe instead of putting it in the easement or the right of way where the trees are planted and have it. And I see it right now with PVC pipe, and it's not just clay now; it's PVC. Like I think we've gotten so comfortable with like PVC pipe in my neighborhood right now. They planted every sewer pipe in the right of way on my street, and there's a tree on top of every section of it.
Wow.
Like every maybe 20 some 30 some feet, there's a tree. And then the sewer manhole is right in between the trees. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how even PVC pipe has its disadvantages too in certain places. Even though it could be airtight when it's installed, you still have a joint, and that's a weak spot in any type of pipe that you put underground. If you have a weak spot, you're going to get roots, you're going to get grease. Well, not grease so much, but I anyway, leaching into the system and causing more problems. So how do you think we can improve the image of clay pipe?
Well, just how keep spreading the word, Chad. It's a typical engineer, if he goes online and he researches clay pipes versus most other pipes, I think every engineer is going to say, hey, it's hard to beat clay pipe. But a lot of times there's political things involved. There's other things involved where the decision is not up to the engineer. It's up to the mayor, the developer, who's picking materials for the jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that everyone plays a role in the communities that they're at as far as what materials they want to put in the ground. And it is it's a struggle because some of them might not be educated on the advantages or disadvantages of a certain type of material. And then, they could be swayed one way that this is the best thing since sliced bread. And it might not be, because we didn't do enough due diligence on that side of things to make sure.
Another thing maybe I'll add, Chad, is, the contractor. There's clay pipe is in the specs in many cities around the country, even though it doesn't get used there. But they may have pipe A, B, and C and clay pipe. They'll have 4 pipes in the specifications, and really they're giving the decision on which product to pick to the contractor, the installer. There's 4 guys bidding on this project, and they're gonna pick the pipe number 1 that's cheapest to purchase, and the pipe they think they can get the most production and make it install the fastest to generate more profit. And I don't know, as an engineer and somebody, a city person that's in charge of, this pipe's in the ground, the contractor installs it, but they're in charge of, owning and maintaining that pipe for its life. So it doesn't make sense to me why, and this happens everywhere, and this is just me, but they shouldn't be giving the decision on the pipe material to the contractor. That shouldn't be his decision, because he installs it, he gets paid, and he walks away. And
interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, like
how do you think? Yeah,
Louis.
And that's it. And then I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Okay.
But something hit me right then. It's like, okay, how did we let the contractor start dictating what is already written in a spec? So if I'm the engineer and I write clay pipe is the preferred material, right? And typically the language is we'll accept an alternative, but there is no alternative to clay. There's no alternative material, right? So how is a contractor getting around those things? I wonder. It's
well, it's the specification. The city will allow pipe A, B, C, and D, and clay pipe, and they're all treated equally in the spec, if you will. They're all allowed. One pipe might need, this flexible pipe might need more bedding. They'll have a detail. Sometimes they'll have a detail it'll be the same detail for a rigid pipe. Clay and concrete are rigid pipes. They're designed and installed differently than the flexible pipes, and sometimes they'll have the same detail for both, which is really an engineering no-no. We've had some successes with clay pipe where the jurisdiction they'll bid clay pipe and then another product, and they'll get bids in for the same project with several different pipe materials. and then they'll run a life cycle cost analysis based on those initial bid numbers and get an effective life cycle cost. And then, getting the present worth of pipe A, B, and C, then they'll make a decision what pipe to pick. And typically the pipe with the longest life always wins a life cycle cost analysis. I've seen it one time where it did not, because the initial bid spread was so big where, you could install this pipe so much cheaper than this one. It's happened. I've seen it once where they could take the balance and invest that money and have enough money to replace it in 50 years. So,
oh, wow. Interesting.
Well, it doesn't happen very often, but
Right.
the thing that present worth life cycle doesn't consider is, hey, what if they built in the last 50 years? Is it even feasible in 50 years based on what's on the surface to replace the pipe?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many underground environmental factors that play into that because, some soils are acidic, some, some are completely different chemistry in the grounds. And I don't think anybody's going around taking soil samples. Maybe they do, maybe I don't know, but to figure out what material is going to be put in that place and whether it's going to last 100 years or not. I mean, that's just kind of rolling the dice, I guess. But it's surprising to me that we're doing these cost analysis and, but we're seeing how some of the materials are just not lasting that long now. So I think that comes back to clay pipe, why clay pipe is blowing up, because people are realizing that sustainability in communities, life cycle of these materials, clay pipe has a history, a long, long history. And I'm not advocating, but I'm just saying, just in my experiences, it's been around forever, long time.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. The oldest lines in here in the States are 200 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, 1815 was the earliest installation of clay pipe.
Yeah, that's 1815, you said?
1815, yeah.
Wow.
They're over 200 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, right there, that's got the history. It's got, if you're talking about bidding, I mean, why, even if it's cost, you're still looking at sustainability for maybe 200 years, and it's proven out.
Well, you asked earlier, but the two big pushers for clay pipe, number one is longevity. Our biggest competitor will never last as long as this because, it's a product that just the material itself degrades over time. And then number two is on the operations and maintenance side. Clay pipe is so hard. It's 18,000 PSI compressive strength. It's between an 8 and a 9 on the Mohs scale of hardness. So the abrasion resistance of clay pipe is like no other. So, on the cleaning side, and all sewers need cleaning, as far as hydrojetting, mechanical tooling, the jet angles, the rotational nozzles, seem like they're getting more and more aggressive to clean a sewer.
Oh yeah.
There is no comparison on the maintenance side between mechanical tooling, hydromechanical, hydrojetting. There's no comparison. So I guess I've heard this a lot. Hey, clay, your biggest competitor, number one, it doesn't last as long, and then you can't clean it when you have to install the pipe. So what good is it? What good is it?
Yeah. That's interesting because, I mean, the history of clay pipe and getting roots out was mechanical methods, like you said, using chains to whip around in there because he didn't have the hydraulic nozzles that we do now.
Yeah.
But they would use chains, saws, all kinds of stuff to cut them out.
Yeah.
Which
is 3-4 blade cutters on a hydromechanical tool. That's pretty commonplace.
Yeah.
A lot of cities use that as a proofing tool. When these guys are cleaning sewers, say they've got a warthog, they've got some kind of a rotational nozzle, and those guys are blind. They run the nozzle down, they pull it back, but how do they know how clean they got it? How do they know if there's an anomaly in the pipe? They'll put on a hydromechanical, like a 3-blade cutter, like say it's a 7.5-inch 3-blade cutter, and they run that down through the 8-inch pipe, and it's a proofing tool. It assures them, hey, we're set up. We've cleaned this sewer line from point A to point B. Let's put our proofing tool on and ensure we've got 90% of operational capacity restored to that pipe before we pull our traffic and move out. So those proofing tools is just like a root saw. You can't use those in many kinds of pipe without fear of damaging. So,
yeah, especially in a new line pipe. You're not putting any of that stuff in there. I wouldn't. I mean,
there's so many limitations to line pipes or some of the flexible type products that are out there, they really handicap what can and can't be used in the
Yeah,
pipe.
that's for sure. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that. And it's funny you said that about when they're cleaning, because you're right. Sometimes they go blind, and I've heard stories where they just thought they were getting the pipe clean and the system was getting backups,
Yeah.
overflows, and they were like, "What is going on? You did the whole town in a year," and they finally realized that that wasn't the right way to do cleaning, and that's a
Yeah.
whole nother topic. But
That is another
uh,
topic.
yeah, it's amazing what's happening out there. So where do you think clay pipe's future is?
We're continuing to grow and get bigger. I guess we've got 6 factories around the country making and supplying clay pipe. Um, I guess I'm thinking that there's going to become a day where we're going to build a new factory to keep up with the demand. It hasn't happened yet, Chad, but
Yeah.
we'll see what the next several years brings for us.
Now, I'm kind of ignorant to this right now because I didn't do enough research, and I should have before we talked. But clay sounds like a soil product, right? We have clay soil. We have is there components of clay that when it's
Yeah.
built is into the product itself?
Yeah, I mean, what clay pipe is, brick on your brick house. That's
Mhm.
vitrified clay, but not in the shape of a pipe. Roof tile, that's vitrified clay. Wall tile, floor tile, that's all vitrified clay. The other product that's typically made is uh, flue liners.
Mm.
All of our clay pipe factories make flue liners, and essentially they make them round, but a lot of times they're square, rectangular. Those are vitrified clay, and a flue liner would be like you build a custom home and you build this full masonry fireplace. That's essentially clay pipe that's
Mm.
stacked up
Yeah.
inside the fireplace. But
So
well,
there's so many use cases. It's so many use cases for clay. I mean, in
yeah,
general, I was talking
yeah.
about the chemistry of clay, the materials, and like if it was soil components in it that made it more adaptable to harsh environments, right? So in the soil, for example, if there's just enough chemistry there.
Yeah, well, I guess what I was going with that, and I got
Sure,
sidetracked. Yeah,
that's
but
okay.
what goes in to make clay pipe is basically dirt. We add water, and then we kiln fire, and the water comes out. But every
Yes.
factory that makes clay pipe, they have a clay mine, or they have clay mines near the factory where, like our factory, and we have a factory in Ohio. They mine 2 different clays. There's one is it's a fire clay, and the other one's a shale, and it's a certain percentage of this clay you blend with this other clay. We blend it together. They grind it to a fine particle size, and the pipe is extruded. So they have 2 clays that go in, and it's basically clay pipe is the most natural, most abundant material in the world because it's made from dirt and we add water.
So climate change, environment. I'm thinking we're using PVC pipe, which is not good for the environment. From all the studies that were coming out now with
They're on
the
the red
petroleum.
list. Yeah,
But
all
yeah,
the
I mean,
buildings in the red list. Yeah, they're a red
so
list product.
yeah, so I could see where clay is making a comeback because sustainability, climate change initiatives. We're using a clay product that is natural, like you said, and it's from the earth, right? It's
Right.
not made chemically and put together. So wow, I think as far as sustainability wise, clay needs to be one of the number one. It's just from thinking off the top of my head, as far as environmentally speaking, we could be looking at clay as a big comeback in the future
Sure.
for
Yeah, yeah.
sustainability.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on the environmental side, we're not made from a fossil fuel like oil, like
right.
many of our competitors. You look at embodied energy, embodied carbon, some of these life cycle studies. There's absolutely no comparison on
Wow.
when you get into the embodied energy and the embodied carbon. The other product is they're on listed on the red list. There's a lot of building that's happening today where they're not using any red listed products.
Mm,
Google built that huge facility out on the West Coast, and they didn't allow any red listed products. And
yeah.
our big competitors on there.
Oh wow.
Oh
That's
yeah, that
that's
pipe is on there, and then there's about 4 different components that go into that pipe that are on the red list. It's
well. Look,
unreal.
yeah, Jeff. We're running out of time, but this has been an insightful podcast, man. This is giving me more insight to the clay and why we should be looking at clay as an alternative now. number one alternative to anything we're doing underground as far as infrastructure pipe wise.
Yeah. Well, Chad, I think but we're limited to we're a non-pressure pipe. So clay pipe is gravity flow sewer only.
Yeah.
And we're primarily used for sanitary environments because of our corrosion. We could be used in stormwater environments, but it costs more than concrete pipe, and concrete's we really don't compete. They're used for storm, we're used for sewer, sanitary sewer,
yeah,
and ductiles on the water side. That's kind of the big three in many of our markets.
Yeah. I can see where clay needs to be, put in every sanitary sewer system throughout and used as a sustainable product. So, Jeff, how could people get a hold of you if they needed to, learn more?
Hey, you can go to our website, www.ncpi.org. There's a ton of info on there. My email is on the website. All my contact information is on that site, but that's probably the best way to, without rattling off my phone number, Chad,
yeah.
www.ncpi.org to learn more about it.
You don't want a bunch of spam calling going on. That's for sure. So, Jeff, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Wow. Very enlightening, and look forward to future conversations we might be having.
You bet, Chad. Hey, thanks for coordinating this. It was fun.
It was awesome. Thank you so much.